Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. On the satellite yesterday, had some clouds lingering around the southeast coast here, and that's where Sitka's 24/100ths of an inch of rain actually came from what was left over here. And that moving out, a band of moisture right up through the interior here, mostly sliding a little bit to the west. Lots of sunshine from Fairbanks, Tanana Valley up to Arctic Village there in the Koyukuk Valley, as well as the northwest coast. But down to the south, watching low pressure here take off to the southeast, and right there on the edge of the picture, the cloud mass associated with the next storm that's coming northward here. You can see moisture already up this morning up to the North Gulf Coast, and that all tending to advance in toward the Panhandle. Some pretty good sunshine today across much of the southeast coast there, all the way up into the Yukon. But cirrus now spreading over the area, and clouds on the increase gradually. That'll continue this evening, and some light rain finding its way over to Yakutat. Winds beginning to increase out of the east along the North Gulf Coast with solid rain there. Kodiak going on today. Moderate rain to heavy at times with pretty brisk northeast winds, 15 to 30 miles an hour. Rain up to Seldovia, some of that as far north as Homer and Seward, and pretty gusty winds blowing through the Portage Valley area as high as 50 miles an hour this afternoon with some rain there. Whittier also picking up some rain, and into southern Cook Inlet as well. This mostly just higher and mid clouds, but some showers showing up on the radar in this area from the Copper River Basin over to the west. Some light rain at times over around Bethel, where they picked up about 1,300s in the last 24 hours. Showers going on up here, and thunderstorms developing this afternoon over the scattered, isolated thunderstorms over the western Alaska Range. Those lifting northward, and actually got some pretty good showers, some of which produced lightning there, mostly around the Squintina area, and that extended into the central Kuskokwim Valley. And then also up in this area here, some thunderstorms developing, but mostly activity over in Canada again. But we did have some strikes from Eagle on back toward Tanana, and a couple of strikes here in the Koyukuk Valley, mostly to the south of Bettles. That was as of about mid-afternoon today. And then some showers with this cloudy area up to the northwest. Pretty good here on the north slope, but dense fog along the Arctic coast up there, with low clouds at Barter Island, Kaktovik, and not too bad back to the west, and some sunshine here from Point Hope down toward Kivalina, possibly Kotzebue, a little bit over the Alaska Peninsula, but a weak low over the Yukon Delta there, producing some areas of light rain, scattered showers, a lot of clouds in this area. Sunniest, warmest conditions again here over the eastern interior, with lower 70s reported this afternoon. And again, nice sunshine over the southeast coast, and Juneau pushed up to 66 this afternoon and 63 down at Port Alexander. But again, those clouds now increasing in that area. This is the position of the low center at 10 o'clock this morning there, just southeast of Kodiak Island, the front roughly in this position, and the rain pushing up to the north. And then the northwest winds back here to the west, bringing some rain, fog, and lower clouds along the Bering Sea side of the peninsula once again on out to Alaska, where they had some rain, dry on the Pacific side there. And this trough swinging across the Aleutians, really more of a wind producer than anything else, getting some westerly winds, 15 to 30, 32 or 3 miles an hour in gusts there, spreading into Adak and Atka today. And this warm front really weakening and stretching out as it pushes eastward with that low center over the Russian Far East. No precipitation reported at St. Lawrence Island, a little bit on the western Seward Peninsula at Tin City, but generally just cloudy skies here. A lot of dry air associated with this system since it's coming off the landmass there, and pretty dry with the main precipitation back up along the cold front there, or is lifted northward there along the occluded front to the main low center northwest of Wrangell Island. Looking at tonight's forecast, rain showing up along the coast, slowly showing up there, and maybe a little more eastward than what I show here by late tonight, but generally clouds increasing, chances of rain increasing, definitely for Yakutat. And as this front swings up into the Gulf, gale warnings are out. Look for gusts of 50 miles an hour or more along the North Gulf Coast with good solid rain tonight, again extending and continuing back into Kodiak Island with a low center up around or just near or just to the east of Fognak Island. Brisk northwest winds, possibly as high as 40 miles an hour, or at least some gales here along the Alaska Peninsula on the Pacific side tonight. And breezy conditions, a lot of clouds, areas of rain, drizzle, fog out here over the Bering Sea, maybe some breaks up over Norton Sound, and then the thunderstorms again diminishing and dying back a little bit, but a lot of showers continuing much of the night tonight, but remaining mostly dry here north of the Alaska Range across a 40-mile country and back into the central Tanana Valley. Generally dry out here to the west, just some variable cloudiness, but this low pressure center tomorrow will slowly move northeastward, and we have by afternoon the front right up along the North Gulf Coast here, so those winds will be in a downward trend. Gales could linger into early tomorrow morning, but then we'll come back down to small craft advisory levels, definitely less here in back to the west and northwest of the low center. Look for some westerly breezes there along Kodiak Island, maybe southwest up to 25 knots there for Shelikof Strait. Rain gradually changing over to showers, becoming a little less continuous, more intermittent, but don't look for a lot of clearing before tomorrow evening there for Kodiak. Could see some sunshine here along the coast there, Bristol Bay, back along the north, or along the coast here, in across the deltas, but a pretty good area of showers and rainfall over the Alaska Range, Kuskokwim Valley areas, and those scattered thunderstorms once again, probably more concentrated up to the north here, but still could see some of the taller clouds develop into some thunderstorms along the Alaska Range, maybe even the eastern Alaska Range, but mostly north of the Copper River Basin. Those southerly winds continuing up to 35 miles an hour even tomorrow again. Saw the gust of 40, 45 miles an hour at Delta today. Probably see that again tomorrow. Lower pressure up over the interior, but more of a thermal low, so temperatures should rise into the lower to mid 70s through this area, especially where there's more sunshine. Otherwise, this next system here coming out of the Russian Far East, the first one really washing out, this another one coming in behind it, that will track southeastward and should reach the Yukon Delta coast, at least bring some rain into the southwest coast here sometime tomorrow night, and then that'll continue through much of the day Wednesday with that rain spreading over Bristol Bay by the afternoon hours and into the mid-valley areas. But look for a break in the conditions here just to the east of that location, and then low pressure will make for some pretty numerous showers and scattered thunderstorms up over the northwest central part of the state. Staying fair and dry back to the west, north slope looking really good, still in that breezy, foggy, cloudy condition there on the Arctic coast. Less wind, but a risk of some showers continuing there. Actually, for the next couple of days up from this low center back up to the northwest coast and on into the Arctic, and a lot of clouds, scattered showers, isolated thunderstorms here possible. Copper River Basin, heaviest amounts, of course, over the mountainous terrain, and kind of a cloudy, showery pattern here locked in over south central Alaska and the North Gulf Coast. Pretty chilly air mass with an upper level low pressure area, so even though the main front's gone through, look for numerous showers. Southwest flow aloft with the upper center out here, so that's going to make for numerous showers along the Panhandle, especially the central and northern areas back to Cordova, over to Yakutat and in towards possibly Juneau. Lighter amounts down to the south, trending to die out a little bit or clear out or diminish there as weak high pressure moves over the Queen Charlotte Island areas. Temperatures today down in that area, again 63 at Port Alexander. Klawock had 61, there's a 64 at Wrangell, and at 66 in Juneau. 56 there at Sitka, and with some light rain, 55 degrees at Yakutat. These are all 4 o'clock readings, and 55 at Cordova. 56 in Anchorage, while Homer had 53, and a 48 down at Kodiak. 59s reported both at Talkeetna And there at Gulkana, and again those southerly winds kicking up to 35 miles an hour all along the Copper River basin up there, or along the Copper River Valley, and 68 at Delta, 70 both at, or actually at Fairbanks, Eagle, and Northway, 72 up at Fort Yukon, and 60 degrees there at Bettles, 64 at Anatuvik and Arctic Village, with a 38 at Barrow, but Atchison up to 52 degrees inland a little, and with the dense fog, 34 over at Kaktovik, but the cold spot was over here at Cape Lisburn, right at the freeze mark there, and 45 though up at Shishmaref, 48 over at, or down here on the south coast, or the south coast of the Seward Peninsula, 48 degrees, in the 30s out there for St. Lawrence Island, and upper 30s, lower 40s along the coast there, into the 50s. Farther to the east, McGrath had 60 degrees today. Down to the southwest, a lot of 40s from the Pribilofs, all of the Aleutians in the mid to upper 40s, but there's a 50 at Sand Point. Otherwise, King Salmon came in with 48 degrees, and Koliganek, it's 54. Lows for tonight in the 30s on the Arctic coast through the Chukchi Sea and down to St. Lawrence Island, as well as along the Yukon Delta coast. Otherwise, 40s everywhere else, lower 50s over the upper Yukon Valley. And then the highs tomorrow looking like this, again back into the mid to upper 70s over the central and eastern interior areas on up to the Brooks Range. And cooler though, but just about everywhere rising above the 40-degree mark there along the coast, and 50s over the Norton Sound area, southern Seward Peninsula to near 60 over the southwest interior, with 40s and 50s along the coast. 40s again, Bristol Bay, the Alaska Peninsula, we're near 50 in some locations, and 40s to upper 50s here for the southeast coast. Flying weather with the front pushing inland tonight and tomorrow. The IFR could be some areas over the inside waters, but improving here along the coast throughout the day, and then some more IFR out in the Gulf of Alaska. Look for conditions to gradually improve to VFR here on the east side of Kodiak Island. May take some time to actually reach that, and then a lot of hit and miss marginal VFR here over the interior, but definitely along the North Gulf Coast. Could be some IFR to start with there in Prince William Sound, especially on the east side, but should become marginal in the afternoon. Possible IFR here, northeast Bristol Bay, southwestward along the Bering Sea side of the peninsula to just north of Unalaska. Big swath out here over the central Bering Sea, and then not too bad there, just some areas of marginal VFR, possible IFR briefly along the Arctic coast with the north slope pretty wide open, maybe a patch of marginal VFR up in that area. And for the passes themselves, individually, Anatuvik, wide open, really good for Adigan as well. And for Lake Clark, occasional IFR, but better conditions, or conditions will be higher on both western entrances. Rainy IFR at times tomorrow, possibly better on the western entrance, but look for at least some IFR if you're going to go through any of those passes. Marginal VFR for Windy. Isabel, VFR in the north entrance, otherwise occasional IFR possible. Mentasto, go with marginal VFR at times for that pass. And Tanita, look for it to become possibly marginal VFR at times, and that would be mostly on this eastern approach with Portage, IFR, and Chilkoot and White. Could come down to IFR and then come back up to marginal once that front pushes through. And for the freezing levels, cold air here from the Arctic, as you can see, all the way down into the western Gulf of Alaska, with much warmer conditions either to the east or back to the west, high as 10,000 feet or better. Icing threats, mostly of the Rime variety here with the main front as it pushes into the Panhandle, more mixed in the unstable air behind, and the cooler air mass there. And then another batch down here, mostly staying off the coast, but that could reach up and grab the Alaska Peninsula, but nothing too terribly serious. Otherwise, the Aleutians, much of the Bering Sea and the west coast, as well as the North Slope, looking icing free tomorrow. And the upper level wind flow chart, here's a upper level low coming into western Bristol Bay, but really has much of western Alaska under its influence here. Southeast winds at about 70 knots there. Still something of a ridge here over the southeast coast, but then this trough and jet will be pushing that front through by tomorrow afternoon, and then higher pressure back out over the Bering Sea. 9,000 foot winds show 30 to 40 knots here coming right into the southwest coast, taking a turn to the northwest. Easterlies 20 to 30 knots. 25 to 30 knots over the interior. much lighter up over the northwest part, but the central Arctic coast there looking at 25-knot winds, some good brisk northwesterlies back over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, but those becoming lighter out toward the western areas. 3,000 feet, about the same pattern here. Weak low now over the Susitna Valley, the main low here coming up to just south of Montague Island, there east of Fognak Island. 25-knot winds, of course, stronger tonight, coming down to 25 knots, 35-knot winds pushing into the southern panhandle. Pretty light here over the interior, and also the northwest there, looking northeasterly, is just 5 to 15 knots, but northwest 15 to 25 over the southeast Bering, eastern Aleutians, and the peninsula, 15 to 20 knots elsewhere out to the west along the Aleutians. And for turbulence, not too bad, improving here for the Kodiak Island area. Mechanical moderate chop here with those northwest winds crossing the peninsula, but the heavier stuff now staying out off the coast. Look for some areas of light to isolated moderate there along the North Gulf Coast up into the Coast Range, but pretty smooth everywhere else, and even out to the west here, the Aleutians looking really smooth, as well as Pribilofs and northward through the strait. And after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Harry Keeling, and on behalf of Alaskan Public Media and Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation, welcome to another edition of Hangar Flying. Tonight we're fortunate to have General Handy back with us. We've had a couple of sessions with him, and he's talked about everything from being an instructor at Fighter Weapons School to his concepts and his dedication to safety. Tonight I want to talk a little bit about the F-22. General Handy commands 22,000, I think, servicemen and women in his command, but he also is an active pilot in the F-22. So I'll bet you want to hear about that. General Handy, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Tell our audience what it's like.
It's really hard to describe because it's such an incredible airplane. First of all, just from the pure flying thrill perspective, it's got well over a 1-to-1 thrust ratio, so it's like a rocket ship. I mean, it can literally accelerate straight up. It's combination, of course, of that kind of power and the ability to be able to go super cruise. So in supersonic flight, in military power without the use of afterburner, and the stealth characteristics of it make it an amazingly capable tactical aircraft. But really, the value is in the sensor integration and the ability to do what it does operationally. I've got a lot of years flying the F-15, and the F-15 is an amazing airplane. I love it. But in that aircraft, I've got to look at 3 or 4 different scopes. I look at my defensive displays. If someone's threatening me, I look at this offensive system to see where the target is, and I look up here to see if I'm within range to shoot my missile. And my brain's got to sort of fuse all that together. The F-22 integrates all of the sensors together and sort of gives you one full picture. So it tells you, okay, there's the target. He's good or he's bad or he's unknown. He's at this range, and you can employ this type of weapon on him. So it integrates all that together for you, and it does it in an amazingly capable way where you can see a number of different targets and be able to not only use that information within your own aircraft, but pass that to others. So amazingly powerful from the perspective of just sheer engine power and speed and stealth, but also amazingly powerful tactically.
Many years ago, I checked out in the A-10, and of course, we didn't have and still don't have a family version of that. So your first flight, you're solo. True in the F-22 as well?
Yes.
So how do you get ready for that? You have a good simulator?
It's a pretty good simulator. It does. It simulates. I will tell you, it simulates the tactical portions of the mission. I think as good or better than the administrative portions of it. But it's good, and it's good enough. For someone like me who's got a lot of time flying fighter aircraft, not just the F-15, but flying in a lot of other types of fighters, it wasn't that challenging learning how to fly the airplane. It's a very smooth flying jet. Really just flies like a dream, and so it's not difficult to fly. The challenging portion comes in employing the aircraft. So if you have time in a fighter aircraft, you're not going to have any trouble flying the F-22. For younger pilots that are just coming on, clearly we bring them up and in other aircraft to ensure that they're ready for that transition into the F-22. So you wouldn't want that to be the first fast airplane that someone flew. But honestly, with fighter experience, it's a very easy aircraft to fly.
Are you starting to bring lieutenants in?
We are. In fact, we've got our first, we're just, for a while, as you may know, we didn't put brand new out of pilot training pilots in the aircraft. The aircraft was very new. We were seeing a lot of issues with it that we were still working our way through, malfunctions that were somewhat complicated. The emergency procedures section of the flight manual is almost 400 pages long. I mean, it usually works wonderfully, but because it's a big aircraft full of computers, you know, if things start to go wrong, it can get somewhat complicated. So for a while, we only put experienced pilots in there. But a few years ago, we started putting brand new pilots in, and now we are seeing very exciting that first round of what we call Raptor babies now are instructors. One's gone through the weapons school already, and so those folks who have never flown any other aircraft operationally other than the F-22 are now beginning to get to the point where they can lead their community.
Well, we're going to run out of time again, but I'm going to ask you back one more time to talk about flying in Alaska, because you've certainly done a bit of that. But I want to ask you one final question. We've got about a minute left. So you started out flying 172s, 150s?
172s.
Okay, so what's it like landing a 172 compared to landing an F-22?
I tell you, every time I get back into a 172 or any general aviation airplane, first of all, it seems so big and roomy, you know, because as you know, in an F-22 or another fighter, you know, it's much more confined and everything's kind of around you. But it gets back to, I tell you, it gets back to my complacency discussion, because I don't fly general aviation aircraft all that much. I don't have a lot of time to do that. I wish I did. I study up a lot. I feel very uncomfortable when I get back in those aircraft, even though they're, you know, obviously operating at a much slower pace, because it's just not what I'm used to anymore. And so I don't see that as any easier. I study up.
Good. General, I promise if I can get you back on one more time, we'll wrap it up with one more session.
You bet, Harry. I'm happy to.
Thanks for being on the program tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, again, I hope you enjoyed General Handy's comments. We're going to get him back on one more time, and I think he's going to have some pretty interesting things to say about flying in Alaska, because he's got a lot of experience up here. And until then, fly safe.
Welcome back. We'll look for south to southwest winds here on the central and south coast, more of a southerly to southeasterly direction, all at about 15 to 20 knots. Southerlies 20 to 22 knots, Lynn Canal in the afternoon. Otherwise, pretty light winds for the remainder of the inside waters. And for Wednesday, a little bit of a change, but winds pretty light out here along the coast, 10 to 15 knots. And southwesterlies generally variable to southwest at about 10 or 5 to 15 knots, and could see some 25-knot winds there through Lynn Canal during the afternoon hours. For the Prince William Sound area, easterlies 20 knots give or take tomorrow. Again, the strongest winds coming in later tonight, early tomorrow morning, dropping back under gale warnings tomorrow afternoon. Still could see some 30-knot winds through the afternoon, or at least to start the afternoon here for the North Gulf Coast, but becoming more varied and variable here as you get back in towards southern Cook Inlet. Southeast possibly coming up briefly to 25 knots here for northern Cook Inlet, and then 20 knot to 30 knot south to southwest winds. Again, strongest winds will be down on the southern areas towards Sitkinak, southwest 25 for Shelikof Strait. Wednesday's outlook, light winds now, 15 knots, Shelikof Strait, all the way up into Cook Inlet there, and light westerlies or variable to west winds here from the Barren Islands down along the east side of Kodiak Island. Pretty variable for the western Gulf Coast, central areas southeast 15, light winds for Prince William Sound. And for Bristol Bay, west winds 30 knots tomorrow, pretty brisk there. Gales here southwest of Kodiak Island, and small craft advisories extending the entire stretch of the Pacific side of the peninsula here, lighter up on the Bering Sea side. And then small craft advisories here, southwest winds there all the way up into Bristol Bay. They'll seize 8 to 10 feet. Lighter winds now for the areas southwest of Kodiak Island, up to 20 knots here for the Alaska Peninsula. Out in the Aleutians, the east side there, eastern zones, north to northwest or northwest, 20 knots in this area, becoming westerly, only 15 knots, so lighter winds in store for tomorrow here for the central areas. And then for Wednesday, looking at a general ridging here out over the western Aleutians, but that should give a southwest wind. If the axis is just to the south there at about 10 knots, look for 25 knot winds here to catch at least the northern portions of the Fox Islands marine zones there, and up to the Bering Sea along the southwest coast northwest 15 to 20 knots. Same thing for the Pribilos, more lighter and variable here for the northern Bering and St. Lawrence Island. Then those should pick up in the afternoon to 20 knots as that low center pulls eastward or drops into this position. Much of the gradient now from Nunivak Island to Cape Neuenam, so southwesterlies 25 knots, and that small craft advisory type wind condition extends back up across St. Matthew Island. Could see some easterlies up to 25 here for the eastern Arctic coast, about 15 for the east central areas. The central coast pretty light, northerly 10 to 15 knots all the way around, kicking up to 20 in the afternoon, both tomorrow and Wednesday there, especially in toward Kotzebue Sound as it blows on into the Selawik Valley, and about 20 knots on Wednesday here, north 20 for the Cape Lisburne, Point Hope areas, northeast 15 everywhere else, but still could get a little brisk there on the extreme east end of the coastline. For tonight, here comes that low pressure system and the gale force winds, heavy rainfall or moderate at times there for the entire North Gulf Coast. Areas of rain back down along the Alaska Peninsula, kind of showery but remaining driest over the eastern Tanana Valley. And then rain will spread into the southeast coast tomorrow. And still looking at these rainfall amounts over the east central interior to be quite varied and variable. Some areas not seeing much at all, but more back out to the west. And then on Wednesday, this system comes across the Bering, spreads rain into the southwest coast tomorrow night through Wednesday, and a lot of showers and clouds, hit and miss showers, isolated thunderstorms for the interior. Have a great evening. Thanks for joining us.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.